In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about a new paradigm for thinking about work. In our first episode, Ryan challenged us that the paradigm we've been working in is contributing to making work suck. And so in this episode, we're going to talk about what's the alternative? What's a better way of thinking about work? I hope you enjoy.
Make work not suck. Our podcast that talks about exactly that. Our process, vision, journey, culture, and results. We present real-world business solutions that make the difference. Our goal is to make work not suck. Hosted by Ryan Hodges, co-host Daniel Steere. Join us each episode and make work not suck. Welcome to the Make Work Not Suck podcast.
All right, Ryan. So in our first episode, we talked about the fact that work sucks for a lot of people. And when work sucks, that has bad consequences for not only your work life, which sucks, but then your personal life, which, kind of spills over. But that it doesn't have to be that way, right? And you challenged us to rethink the paradigm, right? The way we have thought about work and the way work has been done for 100, maybe 200 years, that there's another way. What's the other way? What's the better paradigm for work?
So I want to hit on a few things here and talk about. Let's go a little bit down memory lane, history lane here, if we will. So for generations prior to technology entering into or modern technology, there's always been technology. Even the hammer was a form of technology at one point. But if we go back many generations, the way things were passed down, great-great-grandfather passed it down to great-grandfather to grandfather to father to son. And this could have been, farming in fields. When a tractor broke down, you repaired it, you broke it, or you broke it. Yeah, you broke the tractor, you repaired it.
You usually repair it after you break it, but
yeah.
That's, I'm not a farmer.
Got it. So, but those skills of how you did the craft were
kind of passed down from generation.
Right. And there was a lot of unknown EQ, emotional intelligence that happened there because you were working together. There was again, it was just that inherited traits that you grew up with.
Well, it was almost more of like an apprenticeship model, as opposed to like an academic model where you're not in a classroom learning how to fix a tractor. You're there with your dad.
There was a lot of social emotional connection there.
Sure.
There was a lot of relationship building. You hold that back in the the 60s and stuff, and guys, older sales guys are relationships, and younger generations are process, which we'll get to that, but. When you look at in that paradigm there, then there was a point where the millennial entered the equation with technology.
Dun, dun, dun.
The millennial, for the first time in human history, had technology in their hands since birth, pretty much. The
digital natives, you mean?
Yeah. You hit the button, you hit the red button, the red light comes on. Like that was a form of technology that didn't exist in prior generations. And so for the first time in human history, we actually have a generation that is teaching technology to the older generations.
Right.
Now,
that's a flip from the way it used to be.
So then the other part behind that is now you've got a very, technology, especially what we use today, is very IQ driven. Now, when we got into the the late 70s and 80s, it was all about, going into the 90s, college, smart, got to be smarter, push. And we pushed into this IQ world. And then you enter, the computer age, where, the personal computer came in the 80s and 90s and, introduced into business. And that's ones and zeros. Those are very IQ. That's mathematical. And so here we're pushing all of this IQ. We've got all of this technology. You got this entire generation that has grown up with technology. And because they had the technology in their hands at an early age, they didn't learn skills from the older generation. They learned technology.
Right.
And so at this one point in time, you have this gap between a generation that grew up with technology and a generation that was only taught skills and passed technology down.
Right.
There was a divide there.
Sure. I can see that being a pretty big gap.
And we talk about, you hear in the workforce, the millennials. Some are good. The millennials are gonna, the next great thing, and the other ones are the millennials, the worst workers in the world. And the reason is there's a gap there, and this is where the paradigm shift is starting to happen. But we don't know how to push it over the edge. And that paradigm shift is the balance between EQ and IQ. We were subconsciously EQ before we even knew what that meant since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
We didn't know it. And then as technologies evolved, we became very IQ. And you had a generation, starting with the millennials, that were not very EQ driven. They don't know, they've got their own, like meeting people online and video games. Like, the older generations don't understand that.
Right.
And it's like, how is that? You're having a relationship with someone on the other side of the world through a video game. That's not relation. You got to get face to face. Well, the reality of it is they're both right. And that we can learn from both those. So here's the paradigm. It's bringing a balance of EQ and IQ into the equation. And right now, because generation in business was done, handshakes, et cetera, in the past was predominantly EQ. Then in the past, 20, 30 years, we've been so heavy IQ focused, almost the pendulum has swung too far. And the reality is we need to balance in the middle. If we can balance those in the middle, then we can actually achieve what we're trying to do. Not only can we bridge the generational gap between, the older and younger generations, but it's actually getting worse with the younger generations. The Gen Zs are even once removed from the millennials because, they're following in the millennial footsteps and they didn't have that transitional period. All they have is technology.
Right.
The average 5-year-old can work an iPhone.
I still ask my 10-year-old to fix my iPhone when I need to.
I think kids are born with iPhones.
I think
today.
they are.
I think they're just born just going.
Yeah.
But the paradigm shift is we've shifted into this IQ world. We've got, SOPs, we've got, KPIs, and it's just been IQ, work hard, more process, more KPIs, more process, more KPIs, put core values on the wall, but we don't live to those core values, right?
Right.
Process this. And the paradigm is let's bring balance to that. Let's bring IQ and EQ in balance and look at an organization. Now let's take another step. The human brain is very, very fundamentally in four parts. The human brain is in 4 parts. You have your belief, you have your mental, you have your social emotional, and you have your tangible results.
Okay.
And that's very fundamentally.
It sounds like a lot of the personality tests, like Myers-Briggs or DISC, or those kind of personality, like which one you might naturally find yourself leaning towards.
Correct.
Okay.
And so when you apply that into an organization, you have your belief, that's your core values, that is your, your mission, your purpose, what you believe the organization is trying to achieve. And then when you look at what your mental is, that is your journey, your customer experience, what you want your customers to feel and experience when they buy your product, all the way down to the SOPs on how you deliver it. You've got your culture, which is how your people actually behave, not what's written on the walls. The question,
right?
We've all been in the organization where the core values are written on the walls, and you're like, yeah, authenticity, and then you got over here, and you got people kind of gossipy and hiding things, and the boss is coming, don't say anything, and it's like, where's the authenticity in this? Not to mention, hey, can you pepper some more authenticity on that, Bob?
Yeah,
that's a whole nother one. But that's your culture is how your culture is actually behaving, the social emotional part, and then your results, which are your KPIs, cash in the bank, the things, the results of all of that. And when you think from IQ and EQ, 2 of those are very IQ focused, and 2 of those are very EQ focused.
Which ones are the IQ? Which ones are the EQ?
So there's kind of a little bit of shift in there, but the EQ is really going to be the vision and the culture, because that's your social emotional, that's your
kind
emotional
of the
sides,
feelings of like purpose and almost like a spiritual thing of this is why I'm here.
Yep. And then your IQ is more your mental and your physical. It's your journey and your results.
Okay.
But there's a little bit of a shift in there because you do have a level of EQ and IQ as you get from vision to journey. There's an emotional experience you're trying to create with your customers.
I think we're going to have to talk about that one in another episode.
More about that one later.
More about that one later.
And there are those junction points in there. But the paradigm is if we bring balance to the IQ and the EQ side, looking at it, an organization from those 4 perspectives,
right,
we can actually achieve what we're trying to achieve. But I know there's a question you're waiting to ask me here.
Well, before I get to my question, let me recap. All right. So one of the ways in which I've tried to describe this to people is I would say any organization from the largest Fortune 500 down to a startup with 2 people. For-profit, nonprofit, church, school, synagogue, whatever it is, any organization, a group of people has 4 things that are true about it, right? The first is it has a vision, right? Maybe you call that purpose. Maybe you call that your reason for being, your higher calling, whatever that is. I don't really care what you call it, but we would call that vision. The second thing that it would have is it would have what we would call a journey, a set of processes, standard operating procedures, how you do what you do. Right? The third thing that every organization in all time has had is culture, which is how, to your point, how people actually behave, not what we want them to do, but what they actually do. And then the fourth piece is that results, right? The measurables. How do we keep score? How do we know if we're winning or losing? And that those 4 things are true of any organization. You can call them different things, but fundamentally those 4 ideas are true of any and every organization throughout the history of time.
Yes.
So the $1 million question is, how does that tie to make work not suck?
Because I've yet to see any company organically bring balance to those 4. And it's not because they don't want to or they don't desire it. It's because that it's just really hard. And the current paradigm we operate in is KPIs, finance, results. And it takes bringing in that EQ and IQ balance into the equation and that vision, journey, culture, results. When you can look at an organization in those 4 pillars, if you will,
right,
and find where the gap is, therein lies the challenge. Therein lies the change. And again, it's not that organizations don't know what to solve or how to solve their problems. They don't know which ones to solve. And the thing is because the paradigm right now is results, IQ, process. A lot of times you have to look at the social emotional side of this. And when you can bring social emotional balance into the equation, you actually get more results. But people feel like it's not going to, or that's a waste of time. Why would I do that if I can get the result now? I want the result now. But we all know, my stepdad always called it half-assing it.
Right.
You can half-ass anything, but you always get bit in the ass on the other side of it.
Right.
And so that's part of the paradigm is right now, you think about, we'll use Wall Street, for example.
Okay.
I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. Is it's all about quarter over quarter results.
Sure.
And we see this on the big companies. Whoop, our earnings are down. What do? We slash all the people. Get the profits.
In the company that I worked for, they just slashed office supplies. Like you couldn't find paper or pencils at the end of the quarter so we could hit earnings.
And that is what I call a red line result. That is not going to produce the ultimate result of what you're looking for, because somewhere in that equation there's imbalance because you either over-ordered supplies or something's not being followed, et cetera, where we've taken this method in small companies and large companies, and you don't have to cut paper expenses or you don't have to wipe out your head count, just to hit an earnings.
To hit targets.
But because we're so result-driven to hit that quarterly earnings, to hit those annual earnings, to hit the stock prices, all you're doing is you're squeezing your people. I mean, you're like taking a towel. It's like taking your people like a towel and like wringing them, right?
So here's an analogy that I've used with some people, and I want to hear your reaction to this. So I've tried to explain this to people like it's a football team, right? So imagine you own a professional football team. We're not going to pick a team, throw anybody like the Dallas Cowboys under the bus, but let's say you own a professional football team, and your vision is to be the best football team in America. Your journey is the way you're going to win, right? How are we going to win? And let's say that you decide that you are going to be an old school, smash mouth, 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense and super stingy defense, right? Like some of those old school Pittsburgh Steelers teams, right? So that's your journey. But Peyton Manning is your quarterback. You got a problem. You've got a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he is the wrong guy to run that system.
Yep.
Right? And so when you get to the results, you're going to have very mixed results. Yes. Peyton Manning is going to want to think about, he's going to want to look at completion percentage. Your offensive coordinator is going to want to look at time of possession and yards per carry. You guys are looking at completely different metrics because you both want to win, but you're misaligned on how you're going to do it. You don't have the right people in the right places, and you're probably not going to win the Super Bowl if that's your situation.
Yeah, you're just outlined. You have a results and journey out of alignment, which means you're never gonna you'll never if your results and journey are out of alignment, it means your culture is either highly confused, they're doing their own thing, you're creating more anarchy than autonomy, and you'll never achieve your vision.
Yeah, you're never that is not going to be the best football team in America. You're never going to win the Super Bowl with that.
No. Versus if you have a clearly defined vision and set expectations, you've got a clearly defined customer experience you're trying to achieve, you've got a culture that's aligned to it, you will in fact produce the results. And what make work not suck or help work not suck, I mean, the way you do that is you go through those three pieces right there, and the results take care of themselves, right? If you mind the Richard Branson quote, if you take care of the people, they'll take care of the customer. Right. The problem is we too often take care of Wall Street.
Sure.
We want the money. We want the cash. And you know what? This is, I thought about this when we were discussing earlier is, this make work not suck. This doesn't just apply to just employees. This is everybody in the organization.
So even like the CEO?
The CEO.
Okay.
Because what happens when the organization is not getting the results that, whether that is the founder CEO or that is a hired CEO,
right?
They still got expectations on them.
Yeah.
And if
they've still got a boss, even though their title says CEO,
they've still got a boss. And so, how can a CEO make their work not suck? Mm-hmm. By having a thriving organization.
Yep.
How can the employee make work not suck? By having an environment in a company that they actually feel like their life's purpose is being achieved in their work. They're getting a fair compensation and wage. They're not dealing with jerk, pissed off customers, and they're producing the results, hitting their KPIs, getting their bonuses.
Yeah, that's true. So you talked about applying or referring to employees at all levels.
Yep.
I think this also applies to people as individuals, though.
Yes.
Like I had a client that I was working with a couple of years ago, and we were in a coaching call, and kind of out of nowhere, he's like, I'd love to talk with you about something. I want to lose 10 pounds. And because I'm a great coach, I said, I don't think you do. And he was like, what? I want to lose 10 pounds. I was like, no, you don't. And he says, yeah, I really do. And, picking a fight with my clients is not normally what I do. But I said, okay, tell me why you want to lose 10 pounds. And he says, well, my wife and I are going on this anniversary trip to Alaska. And I really want to go hiking on this glacier, but there's a weight limit for the helicopter. And so I can't go hiking with my wife if I don't drop a couple of pounds. I said, okay, thought so. If you could go hiking with your wife at your current weight, would you lose 10 pounds? He's like, well, no, of course not. I said, okay, that's why I'm saying you don't actually want to lose 10 pounds. What you want, your vision, is to go on a hiking trip with your wife on the glaciers, right? That's your vision. Your journey is what we're going to talk about. What are you going to do? Diet, exercise, sleep, those kinds of things. We'll talk about that. We're going to need to talk about the emotional side of this, right? What's the story you tell yourself about yourself, right? Who do you need to become to get to that hiking trip? And then lastly, we can talk about the 10 pounds. But if you do those other things first and you do those well, the 10 pounds will take care of itself. But if you just chase 10 pounds, you're never going to get there. And so what I find is very common for me and for a lot of people is I have a result in my mind, but I never am able to get there. And by kind of using this process of, okay, let's start with the vision. Let's go through the process. The journey. Let's talk about the people and the feelings. Hate that F word, feelings. Then we end up getting to that result in a more consistent, predictable way, as opposed to, like you said, just kind of ringing people for the quarterly earnings report that we're trying to hit. Throughout the history of time, every organization has had four things, regardless of the size, 4 things are true of every organization. 1, they have a vision. 2, they have a journey. 3, they have a culture. And 4, they have results. Most organizations suck to work for because they're out of alignment with themselves. And in the next couple episodes, we're going to be unpacking what does that mean and how can you become a more healthy and effective organization.